Gun, tell me your sole purpose for joining the army. My purpose is to obey your orders. You're a damn genius. I've never heard a more satisfying answer. Your IQ must be over 160. You're a damn genius. But in the instructor's eyes, he's a genius. Even with an IQ of only 75, he lived a life like he had cheat codes. As a kid, he happened to dance a bit, and became an overnight sensation after a tenant imitated him. In school, he was chased and bullied by classmates. But because he ran so fast, a coach noticed him. He was fast-tracked into a prestigious university. After graduation, he enlisted in the army. He broke multiple military records in a row. Later, he headed to the Vietnam War, where he bravely rescued half a company of comrades. A friend helped him invest in a small company, and he unexpectedly became wealthy. He later found out the company was called Apple. When Forrest Gump entered this world, he was destined to be different. He had a congenital defect in his spine, and needed heavy metal braces to walk. However, Forrest's mother was a remarkable woman. She ran an old house on her own, but never let her son feel inferior. Because of his condition, you're just like everyone else. There's nothing different about you. His IQ test result was only 75, 5 points below the enrollment standard. To get Forrest into a regular school, his mother paid a price unimaginable to most. Where is Mr. Sweet, Mrs. Gump? He's on vacation. She fought for her son's right to an equal education. Young Forrest could only sit in the chair outside the door, vaguely listening to the strange noises coming from inside. He only knew that the principal was taking advantage of his mother. The school bus slowly stopped at the front door. Facing the fierce-looking female driver, Forrest stood by the door, hesitant to get on. Mama said not to get into strangers' cars. I'm Forrest Gump. Only after they exchanged names and Forrest decided they were no longer strangers did he get on. The bus was full of children. They stared at this disabled new classmate. No child wanted to sit with Forrest. A clear voice came from the back. You can sit here if you want. This was the first time Forrest felt kindness from a peer. My name is Forrest Gump. They became inseparable friends. Jenny was always afraid to go home. Jenny's father should have loved his daughter because he would kiss and touch Jenny. Some intimate acts are not born of love, but are a kind of trauma that can destroy a child's entire childhood. Jenny's father was an unemployed farmer and a drunk. He took out all his frustrations on his daughter. One day, Jenny pulled Forrest into a cornfield, kneeling in the mud and praying to the sky. Dear God, please turn me into a bird that can fly. But the police came and took Jenny's father away. So Jenny was sent to live with her grandmother. She would quietly climb up to Forrest's bedroom window. The two children squeezed onto one narrow bed. Jenny said she was afraid of the dark. One day, 3 bullies on bicycles targeted Forrest as he walked home with Jenny. They had malicious smiles on their faces, throwing stones at Forrest. They shouted anxiously at him, "I'll run, Forrest." Forrest followed Jenny's command. He took heavy, lumbering steps, but the bullies' bikes were getting closer. Forrest ran harder and harder. Then, something incredible happened. The metal braces on his legs suddenly snapped. Forrest took off like a horse off the leash. He vanished in the blink of an eye. Those 3 bullies became the perfect training partners for him. They never stopped chasing him. By high school, they even got an old car. He easily outran every athlete. The coach's jaw nearly hit the floor. Who on earth is that? The local idiot. A few days later, thanks to his natural talent for running, Forrest was recruited by the state university. He didn't understand complex tactics. The only thing his teammates told him was, once you get the ball, run as fast as you can. Don't stop. This simple instruction was exactly what Forrest was best at. Whenever the game started, as soon as the ball landed in his arms, he shot toward the goal line like an arrow. No one could stop him. Jenny got into a women's college, far away from Forrest's university. But whenever Forrest had free time, he would hitchhike to visit her. One rainy day, Forrest sat alone on a bench outside Jenny's building. A car was parked in the distance. He could vaguely see 2 figures entwined inside. He recognized one of them as Jenny. Only one thought crossed Forrest's mind. He rushed over and yanked the car door open. But gratitude wasn't what awaited him. Forrest, why did you do that? They were just on a date. He pulled out some rain-soaked chocolates and handed them over. I brought you chocolates. Looking at the silly boy drenched like a drowned rat, Jenny's anger mostly faded. She quietly led him back to her dorm to change into dry clothes. Jenny wanted to give herself to Forrest, but the dummy was completely clueless. "I think I got your roommate's robe dirty." "I don't care. I don't like her anyway." Forrest gradually made a name for himself on the field. He was selected for the All-American team. As an athlete representative, he was invited to the White House to meet the president. He downed 15 bottles of Dr. Pepper in one go. "Congratulations. How do you feel?" "I think he said he needs to pee." On graduation day, an officer handed Forrest a recruitment brochure. So, he boarded the bus to the army camp. And so, Forrest began his military journey. On the bus to boot camp, no one wanted to give up the seat next to them, not until he reached the very last row, where a black young man showed him kindness. "You can sit here if you want." This was Bubba, the second most important friend in Forrest's life. Bubba harbored a grand dream, to one day own his own shrimp boat. In the army, Forrest unexpectedly discovered he was a natural. Done, drill sergeant. "Why did you assemble that rifle so fast?" "My God, that was too fast. You just set a new company record." "If you feel you're overqualified for this, I'll make sure you get into officer school. You'll definitely be a general someday." Army life was often lonely and tedious. One night, Forrest's roommate hands him a magazine. To his surprise, he finds Jenny, the girl he's been longing for. It turns out she was expelled from school for these photos. Now she's a singer at a bar. In the center of the stage, Jenny sings softly with her guitar. It's as if she's living her childhood dream. But the men in the crowd aren't exactly gentlemen. One drunk guy even starts groping her. Forrest steps in once again. But in doing so, he ruins Jenny's performance. When Forrest tries to carry her bridal style, Jenny angrily pushes him away. She blames him for always showing up at the wrong time, and for making a mess of her life. Forrest honestly tells her how he feels. "I can't help it, I love you." "Forrest, you don't know what love is." "Listen, you have to promise me one thing, okay? If you ever get into trouble, just run, okay? Run far away." Forrest goes home to say goodbye to his mother. His mother doesn't say anything overly sentimental. After arriving at the battlefield in Vietnam, Forrest and Bubba are assigned to Lieutenant Dan Taylor. Lieutenant Dan is lean and fit. His ancestors all died heroically in battle. He's long been prepared to die for his country. Yet, he's surprisingly gentle with his men. Our platoon has 2 rules. 1, take care of your feet. 2, don't do anything stupid, like getting yourself killed. Bubba and Forrest sit back to back in the mud, keeping each other warm. Bubba invites Forrest to buy a shrimp boat together after the war. They'll split the profits 50-50. He shares this beautiful dream, but the letters he sends home never get a reply. When the 4 months of continuous rain finally stop, Forrest's squad is ambushed. Bullets rain down from all directions. Lieutenant Dan orders a retreat. "Forrest, run, Forrest." Simple Forrest doesn't understand what retreat means. It's only when the lieutenant pulls him along that Forrest finally reacts. Jenny's voice echoes in his mind. "If you're in danger, just run." He runs with incredible speed. By the time he reaches the safety zone, he realizes he's all alone. So Forrest turns around and charges back into the gunfire. He carries his comrades back to safety, one by one. Lieutenant Dan, whose legs were blown off, is also carried out of the danger zone by him. After setting the lieutenant down, Forrest rushes back into the jungle to find Bubba. Bubba has a massive wound in his chest. Forrest carefully picks up Bubba and runs desperately towards safety. Shells explode behind them. They finally escape the hellish jungle. But Bubba's injuries are too severe. He whispers a heartbreaking final wish. "I want to go home." Then he passes away in Forrest's arms. Forrest has lost his closest friend forever. After the battle, Forrest is sent to a field hospital. He discovers he's been shot in the butt. In the bed next to him lies Lieutenant Dan, who has lost both legs. He isn't grateful to Forrest for saving his life. He even resents him for pulling him off the battlefield, robbing him of the chance to die. A glorious death like his ancestors. He pulls Forrest off the bed. "You ruined me. I should have died on the battlefield. That was my destiny. And you took it from me. You robbed him of a soldier's most glorious end." leaving him to face a broken life. Bored and restless, Forrest discovered ping pong. He found he had a near-instinctive talent for it. Soon after, he received a notice. For his bravery in saving several comrades, he was to be awarded the nation's highest military honor. Forrest excitedly wanted to tell Lieutenant Dan, but he found the bed was already empty. The ceremony was held in Washington. The president personally pinned the medal on him. After leaving the White House, Forrest was pulled into a crowd by some emotional people. It turned out to be a massive anti-war protest. He was pushed onto the speaker's platform in a daze, but someone had pulled the plug on the microphone. Just as he finished speaking, a familiar shout came from the crowd. Forrest looked toward the sound. He saw a girl running straight toward him, Jenny. Ignoring the confused looks of the crowd, he jumped off the stage, ran through the people, and dove into the water. The two embraced tightly on the shimmering surface. Jenny introduced Forrest to her friends. Jenny's new boyfriend was unhappy about Forrest's appearance. He slapped Jenny right in front of everyone. The moment Forrest saw Jenny get hit, years of suppressed emotion exploded. He rushed forward and gave the man a severe beating. That night, as they walked down the street, Forrest plucked up the courage to confess his feelings again. "I want to be your boyfriend." However, Jenny didn't respond. They were simply on different paths in life. Forrest took off the medal from his chest and handed it to her. "Forrest, I can't accept this. It's all because I did what you told me to do. I'll always be your girlfriend." Then, under Forrest's gaze, Jenny and her boyfriend boarded a bus. They vanished from Forrest's sight, thanks to his outstanding ping pong skills. Forrest represented the US in a friendly match against China. This sporting event, later known as ping pong diplomacy, made him a household name once again. His photo hit the front page of the newspapers. Countless TV shows scrambled to cover his story. But standing at his door was Lieutenant Dan. He was now living on a meager government pension, spending his days drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Forrest told him about his promise to Bubba. "I promised Bubba in Vietnam that when the war ended, we'd start a shrimping business. He'd be the captain, and I'd be the first mate. But he's gone, so I have to be the captain." "Yes, sir. A promise is a promise, Lieutenant Dan." Dan vowed that if Forrest really became a captain, he'd join him. Forrest was received by the president again with the ping pong team. This time, he was put up at the famous Watergate Hotel. Unexpectedly, this led to the exposure of the Watergate scandal. The president was forced to resign. After retiring, Forrest received an endorsement fee. He used all his savings in Bubba's hometown to buy an old shrimping boat. However, with no experience, he went out to sea alone. After struggling for several days, all he caught in his nets were pieces of junk and a few pitiful shrimp. An old man at the dock told him to name the boat quickly. A name brings good luck. Forrest thought for a moment and scribbled a name crookedly on the hull, Jenny. The woman he named it after was going through the darkest time of her life. Jenny became addicted to drugs. She stood alone on a high balcony, wanting to end her own life. Just as she leaned forward, Forrest's silly smile flashed through her mind. Forrest's shrimping business was going nowhere. Just as he was about to give up, Lieutenant Dan showed up at the dock to keep his promise as first mate. Suddenly, a once-in-a-century hurricane hit. Lieutenant Dan acted like a madman, climbing up the violently shaking railing. "You call this a storm? Let's see what you've got. You better not sink, Jat sink." The next morning, they miraculously survived. The hurricane destroyed almost every shrimping boat in the bay, except for the Jenny, which was untouched. Every time they cast their nets, they came back with a full load. Forrest used the money to buy 12 more boats, all named Jenny, and started the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. The once simple boy. Just as the business was booming, Forrest received heartbreaking news. His mother had fallen ill. He rushed back home as fast as he could. He saw his mother lying weakly in bed. Her once full face was now pale and thin, but her eyes still shone with gentle light. His mother gave him one last life lesson. "What is my destiny, Mama? You have to figure that out for yourself. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." Lieutenant Dan used his earnings to invest for Forrest. One of those investments went into a startup computer company. Its logo was an apple with a bite taken out of it. A few years later, that company became one of the most valuable enterprises in the world. Forrest had more wealth than he could spend in a lifetime, but he always remembered his mother's words: "Wealth is enough as long as it meets your daily needs." So, he donated most of his fortune to churches and hospitals, and gave the company's shares to Bubba's family. Life became comfortable and easy, but Forrest still felt an emptiness inside. One morning, Jenny appeared before Forrest once again. The two returned to the inseparable life they had as children. When Jenny returned to the house from her childhood, terrifying memories flooded back. Her face instantly turned pale. She bent down to pick up stones, throwing them frantically at the house, crying as she threw until she collapsed on the ground in exhaustion. But luckily, she now had Forrest by her side. Jenny gave Forrest a pair of brand new running shoes. Forrest picked the most beautiful flowers for her every day. "Will you marry me?" "I'll be a good husband, Jenny." "You will be, Forrest, but you can't marry me." "You wouldn't want to marry me. Why don't you love me, Jenny?" She felt she didn't deserve Forrest anymore. That night, it rained heavily. Thunder roared through the night sky. Jenny couldn't sleep, scared just like when she was a child. Everything happened naturally. When Forrest opened his eyes, the Medal of Honor he had once given her was placed carefully on the table. Forrest was left in deep confusion. That day, he put on the sneakers Jenny gave him, wearing the red hat from his shrimping days. With no destination in mind, he just wanted to run. He ran across the entire country. Gradually, Forrest's running caught the media's attention. They chased him, asking why he was running. People began to follow in his footsteps. He suddenly stopped. The massive crowd behind him stopped too, waiting for this prophet to speak some deafening truth. But Forrest simply said, "I'm tired. I want to go home now." With that, he left the confused followers behind. When he found her at her address, he discovered Jenny had completely changed. She no longer looked like that decadent, fallen addict, but like a confident, poised, ordinary woman. She had been working as a waitress in a restaurant, supporting herself with her own two hands, living a simple and disciplined life. She had been keeping up with Forrest's news, and even compiled the reports into a book. Jenny apologized to Forrest for everything she'd done over the years. "For everything I did to you, because..." Just then, a colleague at the door brought Jenny's child home. Only then did Forrest realize Jenny had become a mother. "This is a very good friend of mine, Mr. Gump." "Hello, Mr. Gump. You're a mother, Jenny." "He has the same name as his father. Forrest, you're his father." He feared the child would inherit his intellectual disabilities. Is he smart? For example, can he... He's the smartest one in his class." He watched cartoons on TV with the boy. The two of them took the child to the park to play. However, Jenny's next words cast a shadow over the warmth. She didn't have much time left. "Will you marry me, Forrest?" They returned to their hometown for a simple wedding. Lieutenant Dan attended as a guest. He had now found a partner in life, and had gotten himself high-tech prosthetic legs. Two men once toyed with by fate smiled at each other, a smile that spoke 1,000 words. Unfortunately, happy times are always short. Jenny eventually reached her final moments. "I love you." Under the great oak tree they climbed as children. He personally tore down the dilapidated shack Jenny's father had left. Only by making it disappear completely could Jenny's soul truly be free. The first day of school arrived. Forrest and his son waited for the bus on a tree stump at the stop. When the bus arrived, father and son said their goodbyes. "I want you to know that I love you. I'll be right here waiting for you to come back." The bus door opened. To everyone's surprise, "You know this is the school bus, right?" "Of course. You're Dorothy Harris and I'm Forrest Gump." He watched the bus fade into the distance until it completely vanished from sight. He sat on the tree stump at the stop, quietly waiting for his son to come home from school. This is the story of Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, just like Forrest's life. His IQ was only 75. He once needed leg braces to walk. Countless people mocked him as a fool, but he embraced the world with a pure heart, chased his dreams with relentless running, and loved those he cared for with the simplest sincerity. In the end, he lived a life 100 times more wonderful than most smart people. I hope you always have the strength to face life's ups and downs with composure. A seemingly ordinary persistence will eventually write an extraordinary chapter of life.